Welcome to Film Study, an all-American podcast. Super hype because we're going back and reviewing 3A, the first half of season 3. Trying to do it without any spoilers. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so I have Jason Dallas here. So let's get into it. Oh, yeah. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all of those things. Now let's get into it. All right, Jason, this was the first episode of the season. Do you remember back when you watched it? Because we both watched it sort of in real time. Do you remember back when you watched it? What were your first thoughts about this episode?
Oh yeah, I figured that it was a tense episode between Spencer and Olivia, and then we had the Jordan and Spencer altercation. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts on it. Like it's very tense, and
Yeah. I just remember being like, "How they gonna leave us like that? Leave off on Spencer and Olivia hugging? Like, what happened? What happened? What happened over the summer? What's going on? What's this Vegas deal?" Apparently, Layla and Spencer are back together, just like all of these things. Mo is back. I remember that being also a huge thing that we were just like, Mo just said, like, she's back. She and Coop met. But like, how is this gonna turn out? Like, I remember those being the two major things, like Spencer and Olivia, and then like Mo being back
yeah,
for
and I think
Tyrone.
Simone giving away her baby and not talking to Jordan the whole episode was like something that was big in that episode, and um, Billy and the principal.
Yeah, but that sort of got resolved by the end. But I think like
Yeah,
the takeaways, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it was like what's Spencer and Olivia, what's Mo doing, and yeah, and then like Jordan and Spence and Jordan and Simone, and how's that gonna work with her, not being pregnant now. But with that being said, let's hop into discussing the episode. The first thing we see is Spencer and Chris on the bus, um, and they're going, and Chris is sort of just like playing around and messing around with him, and just like, why you have me out here taking the bus? And Spencer's like, because I enjoy it. I want to highlight that again. That yes, he was going to the Black Lives Matter painting, but he generally, and this came back up later in the episode when I just noticed this, like just rewatching it now, is that is taking this bus is actually something that Spencer enjoys. It wasn't just, because he wanted to see a certain someone. It was because he literally just enjoys taking the bus.
yeah. I mean, you got to if you're taking three buses, you know.
Yep. Absolutely. And so they went to the Black Lives Matter painting. Olivia is apparently like the president of like the basically Black Student Association, Black Student Union, whatever you want to call it.
And so that was very interesting, hearing that, because I felt like that was like
Yeah, it was very interesting.
it just came out of nowhere. Like, how did she get
It
there?
did.
I was curious about that.
Yeah, because we know that she was doing the podcast, which she talks about later in the episode, but it was very just like, oh, they have a Black Student Union. I remember also like, oh, I'm excited to see where they take her being the president of the Black Student Union. Uh, so as to not put any spoilers out there, I'll just leave that sentence there. So yes, yeah, she's the president of that. They're painting this mural. And we get Spencer sort of like, well, first we get Spencer looking at Olivia. Um, and at first it was like when he was around Jordan and JJ, and they were like just talking about JJ doing something stupid as usual, and JJ was like inviting him to his half birthday party and talking about how Spencer wasn't going to be with the Eagles anymore and stuff like that. And they were just like playing around and having fun. I think again, like rewatching it, I don't think at first I necessarily thought anything of him saying it's important to live,
Yeah,
because I feel like that's just something that Spencer would say. But then, like as the episode goes on, you're just like, oh, Spencer's really looking at this girl like from across the room.
yeah.
What's happening here?
The half birthday thing with JJ was interesting, and Jordan talking to Spencer a little bit, about car ride and stuff like that this summer, because
Yeah, the road trip to Vegas
yeah,
because Jordan pointed out that Spencer had been sort of missing incognito, as Jordan called it. And again, Spencer was talking about, oh, you and Simone were all like black love forever, etc., etc., etc. Something I also don't think I noticed until this is that I guess it's yeah, I just didn't notice it before, but after he said like black love forever, etc., again, he's over there looking at Liv.
yeah, that's indeed true.
It's indeed true. So yes. So all this looking at Liv, eventually he went to go talk to her and they talked about his arm. She asked him about his arm, and then he, just talked about how she's been avoiding him for the past couple of weeks. And she said, must have missed the part where you came looking for me, and there was a little tension there.
Yeah, when she said that, I'm thinking in my mind at that point in time, it's like, ain't that a 2 week streak though? You know where he live at. He know where you live at.
Absolutely. They both know where each other lives. So it was just odd. Like it was odd in those first couple of moments seeing this, unspoken tension and still tension, and then you get yeah, nothing was really addressed between them, but there was like the air of something going on. And then that got interrupted because Asher came back and Olivia jumped on Asher, and Spencer did not look excited about it.
Yeah, I could say at that moment he was, feeling angry and jealous and just like, what is she doing?
What did you think about her jumping on Asher?
I did not, I just knew that my boy was angry about something, because you could see
Your
it at
boy.
his face. He was just like, I can tell that he was heated because Chris walked away, because he was standing right there, and then he like walked away, and it was just like she jumped into Asher's arms, and then you had Spencer just over there looking like the whole like his whole world or whatever had just like he was just angry. He did not want to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I thought he was angry. I thought he looked a little just hurt, disappointed, confused. When I first saw him. So yeah, so that was that. Let's obviously, since this was maybe the biggest part, we'll start with the bigger and then go on to the smaller storylines. But obviously, Asher came back. Like we said, she jumped on him. Sort of the next time we see them in the conversation, Chris reminds Spencer that he has to go see the reporter um, to do this interview that he has because he's now like playing for Crenshaw. And but the next time they see each other, Spencer comes by the house and he is like he's looking for Jordan. Because Jordan isn't answering his calls and texts, and obviously Jordan, as we later find out, is like with Simone at the hospital, etc. And again, sort of just tension between the two, because she's like, "You have a key, like why are you doing this?" And then again, Asher comes and interrupts them.
Yeah, Spencer, Spencer. In my mind, watching it, you know, first time around, I'm just like, Spencer, don't you already know that Jordan at the hospital with Simone? So like, what's the real reason?
Exactly.
Your real reason you came over? You know,
Is this the first time you're coming for Spencer James?
it is. I mean, I'm just being honest, and my thought of the episode. So I had to be not objective. You know, not just be for my man Spencer, but to look at that whole episode as a
Not
whole.
just be your man Spencer. Oh my gosh. Yeah. 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 So he was again, it was very weird between them. Asher interrupted, but it very much seemed like Olivia and Spencer had something happen.
Yeah, looked like she broke my man.
Did it?
Like we,
I'd say I'd say it looked like both of them were very
yeah,
confused.
she's like, I think like when he walked in the door, or like when she came downstairs, and that's when she like, to me, she started to hold her breath because like this, like that whole episode, I could see her every time, Spencer came around, and like she was like holding her breath, like she couldn't.
She
Yeah,
was holding her breath. Yeah, that is something that he has that effect on her for sure. For sure. And we forgot to mention this. He at first this was so this house scene where he goes to the house and he runs into Olivia and Asher. Right before the scene, uh he gets a text from Layla, and we hear Layla being like, Vegas was good, but I'm not sure where me and Spencer are at. She shoots him a text. He sort of screens it a little bit. He did get interrupted by Cam, or whatever. But he never like responded to Layla's text, and so now we see him, and he's very hurt looking with Olivia around. Um, and then the the next time we see those two together again, he decides to get back with Layla. Um, they, there's a moment where Layla asks, what did she say? She's just like, oh, I wasn't sure if you're going to be here, etc., etc. And she was just like, about Vegas, it wasn't a big deal. And he says, oh, it was a big deal to me. And then we see a little flash of
yeah.
somebody.
I still, in my mind, I still believe that's Olivia, but we ain't gonna talk about that. Um,
You think it's Spencer and Olivia? There is a debate. There is a debate about whether or not it was Layla and Spencer or Spencer and Olivia, because as they come off the flash, even though Spencer and Layla are kissing, we see Olivia's face as they're kissing, and she was looking disappointed. Like I said, disappointed and confused. That was both of them too the whole entire episode. Um,
yeah,
and so they get back together. We find out that Olivia did not go to Vegas because Layla's just like, oh, you had a sobriety friend. Olivia's sipping out of this water bottle, and she's just like, oh, what? I don't. Oh yeah, my sobriety friend. Like she didn't even know what Layla was talking about. And then she was just like, yeah, oh yeah, her. Yes, yeah, everything's good with her. Um,
nah, I think
yeah, go ahead.
that looking at it again, I think that Olivia was like, you know, recovering from seeing Spencer and Layla kiss, and then finding out, that that they hooked up, because that right after that she was like, when Layla asked about that, her sobriety sister, she was like, and anytime somebody say it's really not, it's either like they forget what you're talking about, or they don't, not registering anything. So she had to,
Oh, yeah, that is an interesting thought. So Olivia was coming to terms with the fact that Spencer and Layla were back together, and so that is why she had her little brief slip up moment where she was just like, "What are
yeah.
you
So
talking about?"
she had to take her sip, which I don't know how nobody noticed that. You got water right there, and then you sipping out of a little bottle. You have a little campus, water campus.
Well, again, we're trying to be spoiler free,
I
but
mean,
yes, she had a water
I
bottle
mean,
and a cup of
I don't think
water
that's a
right
spoiler.
next to each other.
Nah, because
Is
that
it
just
not?
happened in the same
I think it
episode.
was a spoiler.
She's sitting there, got the water. Because remember, Asher bought her water. He was like, "Here, babe," or whatever, and then
No, I know, but I got you. I got you. I got you. So she took the sip of the water. They're talking, and then, as we know, Spencer and Olivia. The last time we see them together, they're at the house with that dinner, and again, she's just like, "I'm proud of you for telling my dad about your arm relapsing," because he told Billy, and Billy was just like, "We'll get the best doctors in the NFL for you. I am taking care of you, son, because you're my responsibility, and my own kids are not my responsibility." But so he did all of that, and then Olivia was just like, "Proud of you for doing that. Let me give you a little hug," and that hug was very intense.
yeah, it was. It was like, man, it was like, in that, looking at that is like, yeah, I'm surprised they ain't do anything in the kitchen, you know. But because like,
In the
yeah,
kitchen, you're surprised they didn't do anything with the kitchen with the whole family there.
man, listen, the way they hug, they should have. but we ain't gonna. um,
Well, I'll cut you off right there and then say, but what the episode did end on was we're not going to talk about the summer, and we did not hear Olivia's answer. So that was Spencer and Olivia. I just
she
wanted to
that's
knock them
because
out
she tried to run
right at.
away. You know, she is
She was running
yeah
away all episode.
yeah she was running, and going back back to the like the whole house situation with Asher, Spencer, and Olivia. You know, I think that's why she was upstairs. When Asher was trying to talk about summer, also, he's like, we're trying to figure out what she did this summer, and she wasn't trying to talk
Yep,
about it.
and she was just like, "Let's just kiss
Yeah,
instead."
so it was like out of character for her. Um,
She was
yeah,
avoiding. She was avoiding a lot of things in this episode. It seemed. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So that yeah, so we end episode one just wondering again where are Spencer and Olivia? What happened over the
where
summer?
did you think they?
What's going
What did
on?
you think? Like at the end of episode one, what was going through your mind at the end of episode one?
Oh, what I just said. What's going on? What happened between them two? Obviously, something happened. Those were my thoughts.
Okay, okay.
What were your thoughts?
My thoughts was just like, dang, what happened? Did what did they do over the summer that caused this?
Who was in that flashback? Was it Olivia?
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, I definitely think that was
Was it Layla? Who was it?
like my initial thoughts. It was like I was like, yeah, that's Olivia.
I I I don't even. I think I went back and forth between who it was.
I was like, hey, Spencer and Olivia and did the deed. So
That's what you thought?
yeah,
Yeah, no, a lot of people
I
thought
think
that
I
too.
think
And I mean,
I think that was my initial thoughts. I'm like,
we find out in episode 7 who it is. But yeah, back and forth. People were making good points on both sides. But people were just like, yeah, I'm not even gonna get. People were very detailed and like looking at that 2 second clip and being like, it's Olivia's like back structure, whatever. Like, it was very, very detailed. They're like, but Layla has straight hair, so who is it? Um, but yeah, people have fun with that little 2 second clip. Um, yes, so that was them. But the other sort of major storyline was that obviously Spencer's back in Crenshaw. We talked about this at the top. He was with Chris taking the bus to Beverly Hills, but he had this meeting with this reporter. This reporter was being a reporter and trying to get an angle for the story. And her first question was sort of a gotcha question, and where she was just like, "Why'd you abandon Beverly?" And he was just like, at the end of the day, Beverly is my past. South Crenshaw is my future. And we know that, we know Spencer, so we know he wasn't saying it in any bad way or a bad light. But reporters spin things. And so, after that interview, it caused him to get into a little hairy situation with his former teammates.
twisted all his words up, and I think she like the way she set up the questions was to like try to I guess make a big deal out of what his response would be. So because them questions that she asked him, like what they got to do with me coming back to Crenshaw, and
Yeah, yeah. And the whole point of him coming back to Crenshaw, because we get that nice little, what happened? This is what you missed in last
yeah
season. The whole point of him coming back to Crenshaw was so that he could save Crenshaw High School. He, along with other people, could try to stop Crenshaw High School from becoming a magnet school.
yeah. So he was being the resource that the school needed.
Yes, yes.
Like I'm trying.
I'm not gonna make a
It's
joke
like
there,
I'm
but
trying to
yes,
like
he was being the
I
resource.
think as I was trying to figure out also is like how do like one person be a resource to like a whole school? Like he basically had the whole school on his shoulders at that point in time. So,
Which is, you know what? Thank you for saying that because I said I wasn't going to say it, but now we're going to talk about it since you brought it up. It, it is a very interesting idea, and I'm very curious to know why his mom or Billy or whoever didn't have a discussion about with Spencer about you know basically saying like Crenshaw as a team can be a resource, like the football team can be a resource, and not thinking of himself as the resource because that is a lot of weight to carry on your shoulder. And that's why, like, even me saying like he was trying to save Crenshaw High, that's like absurd. You're one person, dude. Um, and so, yeah, obviously, this is going to be a conversation in the rest of the season as we discuss in later episodes or earlier episodes whenever you're listening to this. Um, but it was a very interesting way to sort of introduce him being back in Crenshaw, and why he came was that he saw himself as the resource and he wanted to save his community and specifically the school from turning into a magnet.
yeah, and what you saying all that, it just got me thinking. Because I'm pretty sure the reporter heard from somebody that he said he was the resource, and that's the way she um tried to make him seem like a not a team person, just for himself, and that's the way that
Yeah,
asked him the questions like that he would get so defensive and stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah. And we know it, like, obviously, we talked about it causing some conflict with his team. Like, JJ was upset about it. Spencer Jordan's fight was really random in episode one. It was just like, what? What is what?
But the person who didn't affect was Asher.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. Asher really didn't have anything to say about Spencer saying what he said in the interview. So that is another point that I think is going to come into play, like as people watch later on into the season. But yeah, so we know it affected Spencer and Jordan. Jordan was saying that basically they came to blows because Jordan just really he thought that Spencer didn't think about him tearing his Beverly Hills High community apart.
Yeah, if that was the case, he wouldn't have came. Well, he probably wouldn't have came to the thing. But I guess you can say at the beginning of the episode, it wasn't for. He didn't necessarily come for them. He came for Liv, as he said, because it was important to her. But
He did say it was important to her.
so I was going to try to make a statement, but I can't make a statement because
But then you were like, I can't defend him. I love that this has turned into you not defending Spencer because this is so out of character for Jason Dallas, ladies and gentlemen.
I had to
Um,
but
but anyway, so yeah, we have that whole thing. And Dylan helps Spencer see that, like, again, Jordan looks at Spencer as a brother, and it's like he's losing his brother, etc., etc. But we know that Spencer is going to come into contact with some challenges in his quest to be a resource for South Crenshaw to save the school because Carter, the superintendent that wanted to turn the school into a magnet school, then became the interim principal, which Grace was not happy about, and we find out that there's a little history between Billy and Carter.
that was interesting also because like Billy, when Grace had introduced Billy to Carter, it's like they both didn't know who he was, so they don't. I guess at that moment in time they didn't remember who he was, and then Billy was like, he's like he told him that he went here. He went to high school, as a freshman, and like then Carter was like, I went to high school here, but I got
Yeah,
transferred because of Bully Baker and all that, and then Billy was like, yeah, you transferred out of here, in your freshman year, and all that stuff, and it was like, I guess it was so long that they both forgot what Carter looked like, or they ain't think nothing of it. So it's like he got this tension with Billy because Billy. He said Billy did something to him without doing. Try
Yeah.
not to spoil anything, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they had an altercation in that freshman year.
Yeah, so that's what happened with Billy. Billy and Carter, all of that happened. We see Billy looking into a classroom at some random lady. And I'm not gonna lie, at first, I thought that he, like, this was someone that he used to go to school with, maybe somebody that he had a crush on. Because again, at this point, Billy and Laura hadn't been together for like a whole entire season, right? And so, but then as as the episode went on, I was just like, oh, he's like remembering his mom. I was so confused at those scenes.
Yeah, I thought the same thing because I thought they like got a new teacher or something. I was like,
Exactly. It was weird. It was just
nah, I
like,
was
what
confused
is
too.
what's going on here?
It
So much
was
same.
going to be
So
like
much
Billy
same.
love interest or something.
Exactly. So yeah, that was all it. But speaking of Billy and Grace and Laura, Laura then, decided to be very, very extremely mature, and she told Grace, because she was running into Billy to do their little tradition for every football season, and that they've been doing since before they got married, I think she said. But Grace was there, and
Right.
she was just like, let's leave the past in the past. And she invited Grace and Dylan and Spencer to family dinner, because she also remarked that the whole family missed Spencer. Let's say that one more time. She also remarked that the whole family missed Spencer. So clearly Spencer was just not around uh for Laura and Jordan to comment on it.
Um. Yeah, I think Laura was she was very amazing, like Billy said, for that,
She
because
was.
I know that took a lot for her to, say that to Grace and,
I
invite
mean, yeah,
Grace
given everything that
over
happened
to her house after,
with the affair, and then moving her son into her home and lying about the affair and all of that. So yeah, big ups to Laura. I looked at some of my old tweets and I was just like, Laura is amazing.
yeah, I have thought Laura was amazing since season one. So, and I can see why, so because Spencer didn't, the only person Spencer probably spent time with, in the summer with, was probably Liv and Billy.
Well,
Because,
Jordan, no, he spent time with Jordan too.
oh, yeah, I'm saying, like, I guess, well, then Laura, he probably didn't spend time with Laura, because, you had the
That's
whole
true.
summer thing.
I don't know.
So, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think like,
Rewatching it, rewatching it, and seeing Laura make that comment to say like we miss Spencer. I know it was like a general thing to say like he's back in Crenshaw and all that stuff, but I don't know. I don't know. I just think it makes it interesting because it's not like she's never home, right? She was the DA, but for the first time we saw her, Mo was going to visit her
yes.
at her house, so I'm sure she was there when Spencer was hanging out too. But we'll never know because this is all just our opinion. But
No, I
anyways,
was thinking something about, the whole, with, because they um, go, Grace goes to the house with Dylan and Spencer, but Spencer didn't want to go because, he punched, him and Jordan had gotten into that altercation and all that. And
yeah.
I remember Grace saying, in this family, we don't run from conflict. But in season one, they didn't really talk about, they didn't talk about, the whole thing with the affair. So apparently, Grace ran from conflict.
I agree. So she was being a little bit of a hypocrite. She did. She did. So she was being a hypocrite
Yeah,
in this episode a little bit because she definitely did run from conflict. And again, as we see, Laura was the one sort of extending the olive branch to Grace's way, whereas Grace
right.
was talking to Billy. You know what I mean? And it's nothing, but it's just to say, sometimes Grace has some some ideals that she sets for her sons that she doesn't necessarily follow herself. Um, but yeah, that's interesting. Maybe I should do a Grace James podcast. But without all that being said, Jordan wasn't at the dinner, as we know. He was running for conflict because the Baker family and the James family are different in that regard. Um, at least according to the standard that Grace sets. And Jordan was, basically trying to get a hold of Simone, who had again had the baby, but this whole episode Simone was sort of just like not really herself, not really, because she's like a like various like just strong, like confident person, and she had just had the baby, and that's like a crazy thing for one to go through having a baby. And not only did she have this baby, but she then had to give her baby up for adoption. And she was so like wanted to be so strong that she didn't even look at her child before they sent him off to his new family. Um, and so she was struggling with that throughout the episode, not really answering Jordan's text, etc., etc. Her dad was trying to check in on her. Her dad ended up seeing meeting the adopted family, getting pictures of the baby that he eventually showed to Simone. And then we see that, like, after talking with her dad for like the second or third time and getting her dad's perspective on like everything that was going on with Jordan, in that he was just like, Jordan is annoying, but I know that he's not gonna abandon you because you have this baby, or gave away this baby rather.
I think my takeaway from it was, where was her mom at? Because remember she said, her mom took the
Yeah,
baby,
that was really weird.
and
Exactly. I feel like that was just because the actress wasn't in the episode. So,
right,
well, and I remember thinking about her mom, because the last time we saw her mom was very intimidating and stuff, and basically, but I don't know when she was just like, "Oh, you and mom were checking on me." I'm just like, "Oh, so is Simone's mom like better? Is she not as crazy, or like, just like mean as she was?" Because Simone was talking, I don't know, just like she was being a normal parent.
yeah. I don't think I ever thought about that. Like I said, my whole thought was just like, where was her mom at and stuff like that. And then like her dad was just there the whole time, just talking to her and letting her know that even though he don't like Jordan, he think he a fool, that he knows that um that he loves Simone, and that he will be there with her.
Yeah, yeah. Jordan is a fool, that we can agree on. But he's like a lovable fool sometimes. But yeah, so that was that whole situation, and they ended that episode back on good terms. She called Jordan. Jordan was very happy to get her call. And it seems like, at least for now, that they're back on good terms. And Jordan was very concerned about her the entire episode. So the last thing is Coop and everything with Coop. So Layla and Coop are reading the reviews coming off tour. They had some really, really great reviews, so it seems like Layla is killing it as a producer. Coop, according to the show, killed it on tour. And she's coming back, but Patience left tour early. And so we see, them waiting for Coop to get back. As we said earlier, Coop sort of asked Layla what was going on with her and Spencer, and Layla was just like, I don't know. Um, but either way, Layla didn't come to see everybody. It was just Coop that got there, and I thought this moment was really cute between Spencer and Patience because um the actress Chelsea,
Oh
she
yeah,
was pregnant when they were filming this. And so she had to like hide behind couches and stuff. And so when the doorbell rang, which is really weird for the doorbell to ring because Coop is a just walk in sort of person. Um but the doorbell rang. Maybe she was trying to like do a surprise or something. And it was Coop. But before Spencer went to go answer the door, Spencer was just like, "You're not gonna get it to Patience," and she was like, "Oh, this ain't my house." And Spencer was like, "All right, I'll remember that next time you want to Netflix and chill." So I was just like, that was a cute little like Spencer and Patience moment
yeah.
there to say
Speaking
that
of
they're
that,
good friends, like even when Coop isn't around. Yeah.
speaking of that whole thing, where I'm trying to figure out where they got that, Netflix and chill from because, I guess they used it in the context, they ain't using the context that like most people use it in.
That is actually, yes, the verbatim, like, this is what Netflix and chill is. Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I think that was
No,
funny
I
though.
agree. I agree. I was just like, that's an interesting phrase. It was. It was really funny.
But she was sitting on the couch while Chris and Spencer was over there playing chess, and she was like, "Is one of y'all gonna move or something?" And Spencer was like, "You can't rush genius."
Yeah. Yeah. And she was just like, well, good thing neither of you are geniuses. um, yeah. That was a really funny moment.
Yeah, I think that whole part was good. I thought that was the better part of the episode.
It was. And it made like a tension filled episode pretty lighthearted just with those scenes. Um, and so, yeah. So that happened. And again, so we find out that Patience again left tour early. And at the same time, Coop's like, "Oh, I miss you because you left tour early. Why did you leave tour early?" This whole time, they're finding out that Mo came back and she's Tyrone's sister who left the gang when she was 18, and now she's a lawyer. Coop met Mo, and Mo was just like, "You know what? At first, I was on sort of the road for revenge or whatever, but I figured out what my brother did and how he terrorized the neighborhood, etc., etc., etc." And she gave a little peace offering, which was releasing Preach from jail. Did you believe her at the top of this season?
I did not. I don't think I
I
ever
didn't
believed
either.
her.
I didn't either. I was just like, I don't know, the way that she was coming at Laura, and Laura was talking about it with Billy. I don't know if I trust this woman because it was too quick. It was too quick.
Yeah, it definitely was. Like she talked about, I look back and reflected, you know, and like when did you have the opportunity to look back and reflect? Because we didn't get to see that on, on screen. So at that
Yeah,
moment, I'm like, I guess I don't see it. I think you're
I
still
guess.
angry.
I think you're still angry. Yeah. Yeah, and so that again, that was one of the again. I think that was one of the bigger questions uh, at the end of this episode was like, what's Mo's plan? Because I don't think people trusted her uh, when we first saw this episode, um, and we were excited to see what that storyline would
I
be.
think some people trusted her. They're like, she forgiven.
I feel
I
like
think
they
you
were
had
in the
like a couple
minority
people
though.
who, yeah, I agree because
Yeah,
I know I didn't
there were
trust her,
definitely
but
some people
yeah,
that were just like, "Oh yeah, she okay." She figured out that her brother was like a menace. But a lot of us, especially that first episode, were just like, "Ugh, I don't know," because it was so soon, right? She had just been introduced at the ending of last season, and then for her to come back in this very first episode of the next season and suddenly be fine, it just didn't make sense.
right. And she looked at mad on her face, looking at it now. It don't look
Yeah,
like she was
yeah,
like
yeah.
forgiving anything.
Fully
She
committed
was
to
just trying
being
to,
on the good path.
yeah, she was trying, but she wasn't succeeding.
Exactly,
She seen Coop and was
exactly.
like, you and your friends,
Right,
got my boy,
right.
my brother
Exactly.
killed. I
Exactly.
guess because I'm pretty sure she knew that Coop didn't kill uh, her brother, but
She had to because
like going back to the end of
Sean's mom was arrested,
yeah, and
and that was even, which is funny because that was even a point at the top of the episode that Patience said. She was just like, "You're not even the one who shot Tyrone, first of all."
yeah.
Yeah. So
But you remember when she went to go see Preach in jail? She was
yeah,
like,
and she had the
I'm
whole
gonna get
soliloquy. So
revenge.
yeah, nobody, maybe a couple of fans, but for the most part, nobody was buying this. I'm cool. I figured it out. I talked to Da Baker, and we're all good now. Nobody was buying that.
Right. Because I
At the
don't
end of
think
this
VA,
episode.
I don't, Laura didn't believe her one bit.
No, no, not at all, not at all. And so that was Yeah, we got through all of episode one. It was a packed episode. A lot happened in that first episode of the season, and it was the first episode to a very long season.
Exactly. It was hard. Not giving spoilers.
Yeah,
I had a lot
it
of
was
thoughts
very hard.
I wanted to say.
I There's a lot of thoughts, but you know what? The people. That's a good segue to say thanks for being on. One of the next episodes you'll hear is Jason and Monda and myself, and we're doing an episode on sort of Team Spencer and Team Olivia. And as you heard us talk about, that there was some tension. Well, we'll get into that tension and just their top moments. So we'll do that, and it'll be good. Thanks for being on the pod, Jason.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad I can join. Do a review. I didn't have an opportunity to do one like it's season 3B, but you do a good job, and you do amazing at this. So I'm proud of you, and I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
Thank you for listening to Film Study, an All American podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode.